In this video tutorial, I am going to discuss about mismatch repair mechanism, and this is the part 2 of the video. If you had not seen my previous video, I highly advise you to look at that video in which I had cleared certain important concept to understand about mismatch repair mechanism. So in this video, we will discuss about mismatch repair mechanism, particularly in the E. coli. This mechanism in the E. coli is very well understood, and wherever required, I will point out the differences with the eukaryotes. We know that in E. coli, it has circular genome, okay? It has circular genome. So I am just taking its part of genome. So this is the part of this E. coli circular genome. It looks linear as I had taken just the part of it, but remember that it is a part of this bigger circular genome. So this is the part of E. coli genome. We had also discussed in the previous video that at approximately, on an average, at 1000 nucleotide, there is one sequence, this GATC sequence is found. Okay, so it is not necessary that every 1000 nucleotide it will be found, but it is on average. So that means at some place it may be at the distance of 500 nucleotide, and at some places it may be at the distance of 2000 nucleotide. But on an average, if you consider, this GATC sequence will be found at every 1000 nucleotide. Okay, this red one is the parental strand. Why? As we had discussed in the previous video, it is methylated. The strand which is older one, it is always methylated in case of E. coli. Whereas the daughter strand, when it is freshly synthesized, it is unmethylated. So when does this daughter strand become methylated? After 1 or 2 hours of the replication, this daughter strand will get methylated. Okay, so within that small time window of 1 to 2 hours, this daughter strand is unmethylated. And this is the peculiarity by which E. coli's enzyme system will able to identify which one is the parental strand and which one is the daughter strand. So in our case, this red DNA strand is the parental DNA strand, and this blue DNA strand is the daughter DNA strand. This is from the 5' to 3' direction, and this is the opposite direction is 3' to 5'. Okay. This GATC, if you look at the base pairing, G base pairs with the C, A base pair with the T, T base pair with the A, C base pair with the G. So if you look at over here, this is the sequence from 5' to 3', that is GATC. Whereas in this case, if you consider 5' to 3', this is 5' end, as this is 5' and this is 3' end, it is again GATC. So you read in the forward direction or you read in the backward direction, it's the same. So this is a palindrome. It is a palindrome sequence. Remember, palindrome is the word in the English word. If you read it from the front side or if you read it from the back side, its meaning or its sentence remains same. That is palindrome. But in DNA, it is little bit different. On one strand, it is from the 5' to 3', and in another opposite strand, if the same sequence from the 5' to 3', it sounds same, then we can call it as a palindrome. It is inverted in nature. Okay. Now, here what I had shown? Here I had shown one replication error. One replication error. We had discussed in the part 1 of this mismatch repair mechanism that replication error can be of the 3 types. It can be a base mismatch, it can be insertion, or it can be deletion. So for example, if it is a base mismatch, suppose this is the parental strand and it has A in the parent strand. So the ideal base pair should be T in the daughter strand. But in the base mismatch, instead of T, it is some other nitrogenous base. So let's say here we have G. So A and G, this is a mismatch base pair. A never base pair with the G. But by the replication error, this G is mistakenly added. Similarly, insertion and deletion can also be there. This is the replication error. If you want to know more about replication error, you can refer to the part 1 of this mismatch repair mechanism, that video. Now, you can also see that this mismatch or this replication error is nearer to this part and it is far from this part. It is not necessary that replication error will occur exactly midway between these 2 GATC sequences. No, it can occur anywhere. It can occur over here or it can occur over here also. Okay, so that we have to keep that in the mind. So now this is the error DNA and our enzyme system wants to repair it. So how does E. coli's mismatch repair system identifies this error? So first there is one protein that is mute S protein. this mute S protein. What this mute S protein does, this mute S protein, it identifies the replication error. It identifies the replication error and it gets bound with the replication error. So here this is the mute S protein which is binding with this replication error. In our example, I had taken just the base mismatch as an example, but it can also bind with the insertion type of error or deletion type of error. So how does it identifies? So basically mute S protein, whenever it is in the dimeric form, in the dimer formation, that means two units. This is one unit of mute S and this is the second unit of mute S. When both the mute S protein binds, it forms the dimer, and in the dimeric form, it basically identifies two things. The first thing it identifies is mismatched base pairs. Mismatched base pairs. So here in our example, it is correctly identifying it. And the second, it not just identifies mismatched base pairs, it also identifies unpaired bases. So what do you mean by unpaired base pairs? So suppose whenever insertion or deletion occur, for example, this is the parent strand and suppose this is the daughter strand. And suppose there is a deletion error over here, right? So now what will happen? This base pairs, this chain, they have unpaired base pairs, unpaired bases, okay? So this mute S protein also identifies this error. Whereas in case of insertion, suppose this is the parental strand and this is the daughter strand. And suppose there is an insertion type of replication error. And we had seen in the previous video that whenever insertion type of replication error is occurring, there is a formation of loop, and in this loop, this is the extra inserted bases, okay? So this loop has unpaired bases, right? These bases are not paired with any other bases. So this is also identified by this mute S protein by this unpaired base identification capability. So remember, mismatch base pairs are seen in the base mismatch, whereas insertion and deletion are identified as they have unpaired bases. This thing is very important to understand. So here in this diagram, I had shown you that mute S protein is binding with the DNA. So right now we have mute S protein, DNA complex. Just identification is not complete. Now this part has to be get repaired. So for that, there is one more protein, that is mute L protein. Again, mute L protein in the dimeric fashion, just like mute S, it binds with this mute S, okay? So what will happen? See, this is mute S protein, this is mute L protein in the dimer. In the diagram, I had shown mute L proteins are not bound with each other, but in reality, whenever you see in the three-dimensional structure, this mute L and this mute L, both are bound with each other, okay? But for the clarity of diagram, I had not shown that. So now what happens once mute L comes? So we have mute S, mute L, DNA complex. Now this mute S, mute L, this is the active form which is bound loosely with the DNA. Now what happens? This mute S has a ATPase activity. Basically, you have to remember that mute L also has ATPase activity, but here it is not important. Here the important is mute S, its ATPase activity. What it will do? It will break down ATP to ADP and one inorganic phosphate. So that energy is released and it is received by mute S protein. This energy is transferred to mute L protein. And what this mute L protein will do? Here also same thing will happen. It will transfer to this mute L protein. So it will start pulling up this DNA. It starts pulling up of this DNA one nucleotide at a time. So one nucleotide pulling is required, one ATP is there. Then for the second nucleotide pulling, second ATP will be required. Third nucleotide pulling, third ATP will be required, so on and so forth. So one by one nucleotides are pulled up in this complex and each time one ATP is used. Okay, so till which time this pulling will continue or go on. And remember, on both the side pulling is of the same length. So when pulling start, it looks like there is a formation of DNA loop like this. This extra DNA will form the loop like this as DNA is pulled inward to this complex. So now how does it looks? It looks like this. So this is all pulled up DNA and then this mute S and mute L complex. It looks like that mute S and mute L complex is moving laterally. And when does it stop? Whenever mute L, this mute L protein, it is in the close proximity to this GATC sequence. It stops pulling. It scans for the hemimethylated GATC sequence. This mut complex is searching for the hemimethylated GATC. So in this diagram, as you can see, it is now in the close proximity to this hemimethylated GATC sequence. What do you mean by hemimethylated? Hemi means half and methylated means the methyl group is there. So on this half is methylated, this half is not methylated as it is of the daughter strand. So once this target is achieved, when this complex mut-L complex is nearer to this hemimethylated GATC complex, it recruits one more protein, that is mut-H. Mut-H protein is recruited, and remember, mut-H protein is in the monomeric fashion. It is monomer. There are no two subunits. Here also you need to notice one more thing, that only this mut-L is in the close proximity to this hemimethylated GATC sequence, whereas on other side this mut-L is still far from this GATC sequence. So whenever any one of mut-L is in the close proximity to this GATC sequence, this wall ATP breaking down action stops. That means pulling of the DNA stops, and on whatever side, as on this left side mut-L is in the close proximity to this sequence, on that side only this mut-H protein, this is the mut-H protein, okay, on that side only mut-H protein is recruited. It is not recruited over here. Why? Because here the hemimethylated sequence is very far from the DNA. Okay, so once on this side your mut-H is recruited, now this mut-H has one specific action, and that is single strand endonuclease. It is single strand endonuclease. Now this single strand endonuclease, it is very specific in nature. Where does its endonuclease action will be carried out? On the single strand, that is first rule, and the second rule is on the 5' side, of GATC sequence. So for this GATC sequence, this is the 3' end, this is the 5' end. Okay, so here the cut is formed, and so there is a formation of nick, right? So this is important aspect on the 5' side of GATC sequence, which is unmethylated. Here we have to specify that this GATC sequence, we have two GATC sequence, but it cuts only unmethylated sequence of GATC. So here out of these two, this lower one, which is of the daughter, it is unmethylated, and so cut is kept over here. Once its endonuclease activity has carried out its action, this mut-H is removed. So here in this diagram I have shown cut over here and mut-H is removed. Okay, but here you have to remember very important aspect. What is that aspect? See, here what I had shown you, this DNA damage, this DNA error, this replication error, I had shown it near to this GATC sequence. What would be the picture if this DNA damage is nearer to this GATC sequence? Let's just think about that. So in the diagram, in the schematic fashion, suppose this is the 5' to 3' end, and this is the 3' to 5'. This is one GATC sequence. This is parental DNA, this is daughter DNA. This is also a GATC sequence. Here GATC, here also GATC. Just like this example, if DNA error is over here, then this is the first GATC which is encountered, and so the cut will be over here, right? As the rule is on the 5' side of GATC sequence. So this is GATC sequence and its 5' end is over here. What would be the picture if it's a different scene? So again, this is parental DNA, this is daughter DNA, this is 5' to 3', and this is 3' to 5'. This is GATC sequence, this is also GATC. On the opposite strand, it's a GATC like this and GATC like this. And suppose DNA damage is over here, then this will be the first GATC sequence which will be encountered. So the mut-H will bind on this side, right? And the rule is mut-H will put up a cut where? At the 5' end of GATC. So cut will be over here, right? Cut will be over here at this place. So you need to understand this aspect. Why? Because in the next step, this will be very useful to understand what enzyme would be activated. Okay, so keep this concept in the mind while we discuss about the next diagram. So now the nick is over here, Once nick is over here, you can see two more ends of the DNA are created. As this is 3' end, then this end is going to be a 5' end. And as this is a 5' end, then this end is going to be a 3' end. So once nick is over here, this mut S and mut L complexes are still there, it will recruit two more enzymes. So these are the two more enzymes. So again, I will show 5' end over here, and this is the 3' end. Okay. What are these two proteins which are recruited? The one protein is UVRD helicase. This one is UVRD helicase. And the second protein is exonuclease. This UVRD helicase, what it will do? It will separate both the strand till the DNA damage. Okay, starting from the nick to the DNA damage, it will unwound this DNA. And what this exonuclease will do? This exonuclease is very, very important, and many students does the mistake in this exonuclease. Now, if you look over here, this exonuclease, this chain needs to get digested. So starting from this side, the digestion will start in this direction. So see the direction, it is starting from the 3' to the 5' end. So this exonuclease in this case is the 3' to 5' exonuclease activity. And remember, I had earlier told you to keep both diagrams in the mind, where if the DNA damage is over here, then what will happen? This is 3' end, so on this side, this end will be 5' end, and this will be the 3' end. So digestion would be in this direction. So 3' to 5' exonuclease activity is required. But what about in this case? Here in this case, from this side, this end is going to be a 3' and this end is going to be a 5'. So now digestion would be in this direction. Okay, from the nick to this DNA damage. So this direction is 5' to 3', Okay, so here exonuclease are not same for all the type of damage. In certain cases, it's 3' to 5' exonuclease activity is required. In cases like this, 5' to 3' exonuclease is required. 5' to 3' exonuclease activity is required. So what determines which exonuclease activity is required? Remember, again refer to this diagram. If your DNA damage is, or you can say if the nick, this is the nick, if this nick is towards 3' end from replication error. See, this is the replication error, and this nick is on what side? On the 3' side. Here, this is the replication, and this is the nick. So nick is on what side? On the 5' side. So you can say that when this 3' to 5' exonuclease activity is required, if nick is on 3' side of replication error, then this activity is required. And opposite is if nick is on 5' side of replication error, then this 5' to 3' exonuclease activity is required. I had seen many students gets confused over this aspect, but I think by this diagrammatic illustration, everything will be clear. Okay. So that means depending upon the situation, two different types of exonucleases are required. Okay. So what exonucleases are there? What are their exact names? So if this 3' to 5' exonuclease activity is required, then we have two enzymes, this exonuclease 1 or exonuclease 10. Exonuclease 10 will get activated. Whereas in this case, which exonuclease will be there? So either exonuclease 7 or RECJ nuclease. So these are the enzyme which has 5' to 3' exonuclease activity, and these are the enzyme which has 3' to 5' exonuclease activity. These are the names of E. coli enzymes. Okay. So now what will happen? Which part of the DNA will be removed? Irrespective of whatever enzyme, from the nick to the DNA damage, that part of the DNA is removed. So here I had shown that much part of the DNA is removed. Okay. Now this gap needs to be filled. So how this gap is filled up? So here you can see this is the 3' end and this is the 5' end. Okay, so now DNA synthesis starts from the 5' to 3'. So here it will be start synthesizing and then there will remain a nick. So this new DNA or this gap filling is carried out by the DNA polymerase 3. DNA polymerase 3 in case of E. coli, and the last nick is sealed by DNA ligase. So this is the repair mechanism, mismatch repair mechanism in case of E. coli. What about in human or eukaryotic organism? Remember, in eukaryotes, this mismatch repair mechanism is highly complicated. So we will just look at the major differences which are of the clinical importance. Okay, the first difference, E. coli has a circular genome. I will annotate these differences with this green color. So E. coli has a circular genome, whereas we have, or humans have, a linear genome. Okay, so first thing will be linear genome. Here in case of E. coli, the differentiation between parental DNA strand and daughter DNA strand is carried out by this methylation. But in case of eukaryotes or humans, this differentiation is carried out by the nicks in daughter strand. As immediately after synthesis of daughter strand, there are still unsealed nicks, right? In the leading strand, there is one nick, and on the lagging strand, there are multiple nicks. And this nicks sealing takes some time. So based on that, humans can differentiate it, human enzyme system can differentiate between parental DNA strand and daughter DNA strand. This is the first major difference. The second difference is about MUT-S protein. In human, MUT-S protein is not found, but structurally similar 6 proteins are till date identified. 6 proteins, or you can say 6 protein homologs of MUT-S is found till date. What about MUT-L protein? MUT-L, similarly, just like MUT-S, MUT-L homologs proteins are also found, but they are 5 in number. 5 homologs of MUT-L is found. What about this MUT-H? There are no any homologs of MUT-H protein is found. But here you can see MUT-H protein is carried out endonuclease activity. The same type of action is carried out by the different set of proteins, but which are these proteins, it is not yet clear. But one more thing about MUT-H is that it is found, its homologs are found in other gram-negative bacteria only, Okay. Then what is the other difference? The other difference is in the gap filling. Here, gap filling in bacteria is carried out by DNA polymerase 3, whereas in case of human, it is probably, it is not clear, but it is probably by the DNA polymerase delta. Okay, so these are all the major aspects of mismatch repair mechanism. Now, in the human, suppose if replication errors go unrepaired, then what will happen? So, defect in mismatch repair mechanism, it gives rise to microsatellite. Instability in colon cells. And this leads to one very important hereditary cancer, that is hereditary non-polyposis, colorectal cancer, or its short form is HNPCC, or it is also known as Lynch syndrome. So whenever there is a defect in mismatch repair, it leads to microsatellite instability, particularly in the colon cell, and which leads to this type of cancer, this hereditary non-polyposis colorectal cancer, or it is also known as Lynch syndrome. This microsatellite instability is the hallmark of this Lynch syndrome that we need to remember. Now you must be wondering what is microsatellite and what is microsatellite instability. So in the next video I will discuss about this microsatellite instability and Lynch syndrome. So if you have any query or confusion, please write it down in the comment section below. Thank you.